Hey everyone, how you doing today? Thought I would give some updates on some of the stuff I've been working on and doing, and a little bit of updates on release schedule for all these Martian things that are up and coming. To start with, I've been making some modifications and a couple new things. Um, One, I do have this ship done now, and it is on Friends Only as my workshop as a prototype. And something that I learned recently too is um, I seem to have reached a friend cap on Steam, and which is not allowing any more friend requests. In fact, I'm not even seeing them anymore. So that's a problem. I didn't realize there was a limit on the amount of friends you could have in Steam. And I was using that kind of as a way to just put stuff to my workshop that I don't have to put out to the public. Some stuff I never intended to put it to the public, or other times it's just prototypes before I'm ready to release it to the Republic, to the public, not the Republic. Um, but anyway, sorry about that. I don't have a solution yet on that particular scenario. Uh-oh, I'm gonna break a leg. But this ship is now pretty much done. And it is a tier 2 SV, and you can see that it's just under the tier 2 limits on what you can have for a ship at that size. What this offers is, well, 8K storage, does have a drone hatch, has an interior in here as well as warp drive, um, drone hatch, all your normal type of things, like a drone, your Wi-Fi, and let's see, where did I dump the Wi-Fi? It's in here somewhere. Um, yeah, right there. Wi-Fi, detector, fridge, armor locker. Not exactly pleased on where I got the armor locker right now. It's just kind of thrown in the side there. I've got the CPU block right behind it, and so it's kind of visible. I didn't really want to show it off. I know this is going to get reskinned, I believe, and this is more of a placeholder at the time. Um, but other than that, I was kind of happy that I was able to build a ship like this that can actually take off with its 8K cargo as well on a 1G planet, as well as ammo and some more stuff in the ship. Um, but it flies around pretty good um, for a starter SV. Well, starter like. I won't necessarily call it a straight up starter, but it's somewhere early game, I would say. And I think it can do all the functions I would want it to do decently enough. But as in cost, it is 59-minute build time. It does require some cobalt and some sathium and a little bit of neodymium, and a lot of that has to do with the rocket launchers on here, but there are some other parts on SVs that also require the cobalt. Um, So I think with 4 rocket launchers, you could engage POIs with it, take out turrets, shoot drones with the Gatling guns, bring back some loot with you, and have your general quality of life things when you're out and about, like oxygen and armor locker and fridge and all that kind of fun stuff. Also, although this is a steel-hulled ship, I did make the cockpit be an armored cockpit because, I mean, take a look at the hit points on that. 1,800 hit points compared to the steel blocks, which are like 45, 30, up to 50 basically for a full block. That is a huge amount of hit points, and I just couldn't get myself to put in a non-armored cockpit on this because it does not have a shield, so this will keep you alive, I think, for the most part. And the ship will probably take some damage, but um, other than that, this one's pretty much done and ready. I don't know exactly when I'm going to release it yet. Probably within the next couple weeks. And there's basically a lot of stuff I got to release. This I modified again. I put the Wi-Fi in here, so it's got a little dugout area, but I also put in this little firewall, I guess you could say, on this side to protect that from incoming damage in there. And especially if you seat this into the ground a little bit, where these lower turrets are above ground, but you can kind of sink this in a little bit. It makes it very, very hard to try to get to the core with an HV. Now SV, of course, you'd want to probably blast through the center, and if you get down below here, below a full row of armored concrete blocks, so they got quite a lot of hit points, then you could finally penetrate the core. But I'm hoping for the cost and what this offers, it would be a nice little defense idea to place around bases. Of course, it matches the Martian theme, but doesn't necessarily have to. But 25-minute, 25-minute build time. It doesn't really require any rares or anything like that. So it's an easy build. Comes with a lot of ammo storage. Probably way too much. I did also tuck this back in further and put it behind another block, but I kind of left it visible through this particular new block, which gives you access to it. So it's got 40,000 ammo in it as well at that. So I think I would use this, I think. Nice little gun setup to offer some perimeter defense. In other changes, I modified this ship some, just a little bit on the back. I changed the blocks around a bit here so I could fit in a Pentaxa tank because it now has a shield. So I'm pretty happy with that. So this is a tier 3 SV. It's slightly over the CPU, but if you take a look at the CPU efficiency, this wasn't enough to hurt it. So pretty much got everything I would want it to have now. And the shield, I think, is a big bonus because, and here's what I'm kind of looking at too. I like to do these interior cockpits like that for immersion reasons, but I really hate my only protection that I can put in front of those cockpits are armored glass, and they're like 150 hit points for even these larger ones. In comparison to a prefab armored cockpit, it's not even close to. So this, doing any of these kind of designs, unless you double up the glass, which I hate to do because that really screws with the visibility, it's stronger with a prefab cockpit. So I do kind of wish there was a solution to offer some other material or some kind of glass that was comparable to that of what a armored prefab cockpit is, like this the Talon T2, which I'm calling this one, I guess, has. It's a big discrepancy in hit points there, and it really encourages, I think, using the prefabs over the other cockpits, or like this setup here. But yeah, this one's pretty much ready, I think, at this point. So this is another thing that's going to get released in the next couple weeks, I believe. One of the bigger projects, and this was kind of a co-project with T-Rex, where he built a tank and I built a SV mover. This is probably going to be one of the, this is going to come, I believe, either this weekend or like the Monday just following this weekend. I'll have to coordinate that time with T-Rex yet. I did modify this ship ever so slightly from where it was and basically added in these projector LCDs for positioning with a tank. And for instance, if I were to hop in this his tank here and I start pulling forward, once you get close, you have these illuminated areas here. And with this particular tank on its size, if you pull up right to the second one where it's kind of right in your view like that, and then you dock, then you get a pretty nice mount there. And then I think you're pretty much all set up to take off at that point in time. And I think it just makes it easier to mount with that indicator there. It's kind of like I've seen people hang tennis balls in their garages so they know how far to pull up their SUV or something like that so they don't hit stuff. Same idea. But this one is pretty much ready to go. Now this is a Tier 3 SV as well. This one is slightly under the upper limits of what a Tier 3 is. However, no shield on this one. It does have warp drive, but it does not have a shield again. So again, it's going to have that potentially weak cockpit area. And I don't exactly know what to do about that, if I want to keep it like first person how it is, which I definitely do on this design, because it's I also kind of like the little glass down in there on the bottom. Kind of reminds me of some of the helicopters that are out and about. So you get a little bit more visibility when you're flying, just a little bit. Another thing that's new is this thing here, and this is total experimental. On the last video, I was kind of showing this thruster setup, and where you could have 4 thrusters only and have a flyable ship. So I wanted to take that principle and build a little ship out of it, but I also wanted to put in a big part that I didn't think was going to be possible with a Tier 1, and that is warp drive. So this has a pentaxa tank and warp drive, and then some basic things, a couple cargo boxes, a fridge, and an armor locker on the back of it. But looking at the stats on this one, it's slightly over Tier 1, but again, 100% efficiency. Personally, I didn't think it was going to be possible to make a warp-capable Tier 1 SV, but it is. Build time on this, well, because of the warp, it's going to need some cobalt, but it's still under 20-minute build time for a warp-capable SV. And it still has a couple Gatling guns. I thought I had, oh yeah, and it does have ammo storage. Not a lot, 625 ammo storage on it. So, as in this, it flies, but it's sometimes hard to get off the ground though. It's almost like you do want a runway. It turns okay. I won't say it's the greatest turning machine in the world, but it does all right. And landing is basically you got to kind of slow down and let it land kind of by itself, like I'm doing right here, which it kind of comes out to a very nice and smooth landing in the process. But you don't want anything in front of you because you can't turn out of the way. Not sure why I'm raising up like that. Oh, there we go. And then taking off is not so bad. You just, like I said though, if you happen to land like in a scenario like this with this type of ship, like say I set it down over here, you're just out of luck. Essentially, you don't have any maneuverability to back away or get away from this, and this is in your way. The only way you're going to get this ship to fly again is to remove whatever's in the way, so you can have a clear path going out again. So, kind of fun. I'm not sure if I'm going to release that or not yet. I'm thinking about it. Something else I started on, and this is very, very far from being finished. Granted, I was going to be reusing a part, so I actually textured and kind of built up one part, all colored and everything like that. But I'm building a Martian base, a mid-size base, and the goal on this one is it's kind of like a mini waypoint hangar with a farm. So you've got the dual big hangar doors at the 13x7 hangar doors, and upstairs you've got a farm as well. Decent amount of farm plots plus more space, and basically it's going to be a full-fledged base, solar powered base, and the point is to make it very, very cheap, and that's why it's built out of carbon composite blocks right now. And with the Martians, with their whole theme, basically it would depend on these being around your base complex for defense, and therefore the base itself is made out of cheap materials and doesn't have turrets on it. And that's kind of how this is sitting. But even what I've got here now, granted it's very far from finished. We're looking at a 1 hour build time on it, and it's just all in all quite inexpensive. Basically, why it's needing some cobalt and some sathium, I believe, has to do with the hangar doors, because I don't really have anything else in this that would possibly require those materials. Um, but yeah, a nice roomy base. I think when it's all said and done, it might be around a 2 hour build time, and I plan on redoing areas of this yet too. I don't really like my setup back here. So I'm going to kind of redesign these landing pads a little bit. I got to get some elevators from the interior up to the top of this as well. But point is, it would have a roomy hangar plus some nice landing pads and a farm and storage and crafting and pretty much everything. And hopefully in a pretty cheap package that you could spawn relatively quickly. So moving on, I found some old blueprints that I had around, and it's kind of embarrassing, but way back in the day, this name Persis was thought about before, and it's basically god of destruction, in Greek mythology. So that's why I kind of went with this name, and this was the original Persis, like before I released anything to the workshop ever. As you can see, it's pretty amateurish. I didn't know the block angles and stuff when I built this. I didn't know all the wedges and the parts, and this was built back in, I think, Alpha 5, and I think I might have modified it in Alpha 6 to add oxygen. I think and this was built in survival as well. As you can see, I got a bunch of plants growing in here. I actually used this ship in gameplay. I just thought I'd kind of show like the early origins of building ships. And this wasn't the first ship I built either. This is probably like the 8th ship I built, quite frankly. And I just dumped all these parts underneath this flooring here, which would probably kill you now. I can see getting fried right here, big time. So this just doesn't work out so good. But this was like establishing the early ideas of how I put in like constructors and things like that, and also a fairly good size hangar in the ship. Now this is a class 4 ship, I think. Yeah, class 4. So built way back in the day. Just thought I would show that. And this is kind of something else that was built way back in the day. This was a base with a integrated very big landing pad to land a ship of that size on it. Yeah, it's pretty ugly. Had a nice little crafting area though. I was big time into constructors and building ships in survival at the time, so I'd have a lot of constructors. So this one's got 8, and then a bunch of cargo boxes over here. This is all that there was. I mean, you could dump, basically fill these things up with just stacks of 999, whatever you wanted to put in there, or however much they stacked, and then it would be fine. Same idea here with farms and whatnot. So I thought this was kind of a neat little base, and it's got a little elevator that takes you up to the surface area. However, when I first built this, I got it done. I built the capital ship. I flew away and never came back to it in gameplay. So I was just like, oh, geez, did I really need all that? But at the time, you know, it was all about building capital ships. I wanted a place to work on a capital ship on a nice flat ground. I wanted all my resources nearby. I wanted constructors around so I could do that, plus, you know, a farm. So that's kind of the point there. Last thing too is this is a prefab in the game. This is a ship originally built by Mr. Ice Cat. It's on the workshop. It's one of the most popular ships ever made in the game, and it's a very, very cool looking ship. I was just tinkering around the other day and started modding it, I guess you can say, and I changed a lot of the blocks around on the front. And when this ship was built too, a lot of these blocks didn't exist. The windows, the textures, so much of the stuff didn't exist in the game. I just wanted to see, what it would look like if it was all uh, spruced up to like new standards new options that the game has in it, just to see how I can make it look. Because I think it is a very cool shaped ship, definitely. Um, so that's just kind of messing around. I might finish this project, but it's not my ship. It's not my original ship, and I typically don't do that. But it is kind of fun tinkering with other people's creations sometimes. It really is. I've done it before. I just never showed any of it. Um, but since this one's a prefab in the game, and I know there's bazillions of modded versions of this ship out on the workshop. In fact, what gave me a heads up onto it is someone wanted me to take a look at a modded version of the ship, and I was like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. Then I started tinkering with it, and ended up coming up with like a little bit of redesign on the front, using some newer blocks and like this Martian color scheme and newer windows and all kinds of stuff like that. So I don't know. I might complete that one, but again, it's one of those things that it's not mine, and I don't know if I would want to release it to the workshop or not because, well, it's not my ship. It's someone else's creation. A very cool creation, I will say, especially at the time frame when Mr. Icy Cat built a ship like this. I was building ships like this, so obviously a lot more experience there on that one. So anyway, that's all I got for today. God, is there anything else I wanted to say? I think, well, basically on releasing stuff, you're going to see a bunch of Martian stuff start to pop up on the workshop pretty soon. Probably starting with the two smaller things, and then the bigger stuff and all the alternative SVs and stuff, and eventually this base, once I get this to where I like it. And right now I got a mixed feeling on it. I don't totally like everything I got going on here design wise. I think it feels bulgy to me, but again, a lot of that, I didn't plan on making it this big, but I wanted to get these solar panels in, and I needed some serious roof space to accomplish that. And that's kind of why I got so bulky that way. But then I didn't want it long enough to stretch it out because I didn't want it to be that big of a base. And I did like the idea of a second floor on it so I could put in the farm and whatnot. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I plan on doing something tomorrow too. I think I might actually start a new build and record that because there's been a lot of requests and there's a lot of things I really want to build. Um, I've been really screwing around with like learning the flight model and things like that so I could build these newer SVs and make them actually work. But I think I've done enough of that right now, and I want to switch gears a little bit, and I'm thinking about building a Martian starter CV that is fairly low cost, but as much function as I can get into it. And I'm not sure on tier yet, but I'm thinking I might be steering for a tier 2 on it. I think a tier 2 is a nice safe bet because it's not as limited as tier 1, but also not too difficult to require the parts to build a tier 2. Once you get up into tier 3 and 4, it's going to take some more effort and gameplay to acquire the pieces you're going to need to spawn that in. So basically what I'm thinking about doing is a tier 2 Martian starter CV as my next main project. Later on, I'd like to build some more bigger stuff with more guns and stuff like that. But I gotta start somewhere, and I kind of want to start small and then kind of work my way up, knowing that especially on CVs at tier 4, you can pretty much do just about anything within reason. Really, really big ships and well equipped and stuff. So I'm not so worried about it. But at tier 2, I got to figure out where that's going to balance out at. And is it possible, even what I'm thinking, could it be a tier 1 CV? I don't know that yet. So, all right. Well, anyway, you all have a good day. See you later.